We have to think of ourselves as part of a huge flow of waste and food and energy going through, instead of thinking of ourselves as something outside that flow running through our planet. If you compare the energy sources that people talk about these days, it's characteristic that the historically used energy sources like the fossil sources, oil, coal and gas, and the nuclear uranium, they're sort of in a depot, buried in the ground. You take it up, you use it, and then you put it into another depot of waste. So you take it from one limited source, put it into another limited and yet soon unlimited source of waste, which is very different from the solar, the wind and the wave, which are all parts of this flow of energy running all the time. And we have of course to go into the flow process again, and the reason we're in a crisis at the moment is that we stop this flow by using depot energy and depot materials. We have to get online with the sunshine again, and when I say again, it's of course because we used to do that. We used to, a few hundred years ago, to be online with the sunshine all the time, but we have stepped out of that flow because we thought that it was nicer to use oil, coal and gas. The civilization as we know it is about using the depots from the planet below us. We dig in the ground to find oil and coal and gas and uranium and burn it, and then we take the waste product into another hole. So we are sort of looking downwards. What we need to do in the future is to look upwards, to see that there's a flow of energy from the star that we're circling around, the sun, and it's coming all the time, and it's being converted into useful energy that we can use on this planet, and then it's gently radiated away back to the universe from the heat radiation of our planet. So we should stop looking down and look up instead as the future of our civilization. Now, if you compare this ecosphere to this planet, you can see that the basic idea is that the matter is circulating in a closed system. Nothing comes into the system, nothing goes out of the system. It's very complex and very rich. And all you need to have this huge cycle of stuff going around that you call life is that you need to add daylight. You need to add the light from the star that we are rotating around, the sun. And what I want to suggest here is that this slogan, just add daylight, is a slogan we need to build a new civilization. We need to build a civilization based on the use of daylight, all of the daylight that comes and nothing but daylight. That is, we have to step into the flow of life again and stop using the silly stuff that we dig up from the ground. And if we do this, we have to create energy technologies, building technologies, cities, and food production, social relations, and all this kind of stuff based on this idea of a flow of stuff flowing through in full daylight instead of hiding stuff deep down in the earth, or deep down in the archives, or deep down in the libraries, or deep down in the political headquarters. All we need to do this is light. And you can strongly argue that it's the only outside ingredient you need to keep the thing running inside the little glass bowl with the shrimps or on this planet. But if you base yourself on daylight, of course, it has some implications for how you can go about living your life. First of all, you have to reinvent everything. Every product, every infrastructure, every way of producing, of living, of going about our lives is based in a philosophy, based in the use of depots, of things you dig up from the ground and use in the way we're used to. We have to reinvent cars, we have to reinvent buildings, we have to reinvent the infrastructure of our cities, of our countries and so on, all to be based on a flow of stuff rather than the depots of stuff. But we can do that because we have smart engineers and we have aggressive businessmen who want to make a buck, and they can do that by reinventing everything. We have, in a sense, to reinvent or rephrase civilization. We have to create a new phase of civilization, a civilization version 2.0. And this will be based on principles like the daylight principle, sharing your shit, which is not only a principle for ecology, but also for the way you go about your intellectual production and your ideas. The share your shit slogan I originally devised for an open source convention of computer programmers who were asking, why is it that we always want to give away the stuff we produce without getting money back? And I persuaded them that this share your shit was the basic law of their lives, and they wanted to make a difference. They wanted to impress other members of their species, like women, and they could do that by daring to share their resources and care for other people. If you want to get laid, just save the world and everything will be there for you. If you don't save the world, you won't get laid. It's that simple. Now, another basic rule of this is that we shouldn't rely on headquarters. And you must understand that headquarters thinking has been on the basis of this civilization until about 40 years ago, when a guy devised this simple diagram. The guy was called Paul Barron, and he was trying to develop a strategy that would make nuclear war less likely. Because his problem in the late 50s was that the Americans and the Russians had these huge stockpiles of nuclear weapons, and there was a very high risk that they would use them because of a technical misunderstanding. And he argued that the reason they would do so was that their command system, their communication system, was centralized. So you had a center where everything had to go through to get anywhere. If you have a general here and a general there, and they want to communicate, they have to go through the center, like two people on a telephone network wanting to talk to each other, going through the central of the telephone system. The point is, when you have a nuclear bomb, when you've made this invention, this center will be very vulnerable. You can easily take out the center with a nuclear weapon, and then nobody can communicate with each other, and that would make the risk of a nuclear war much bigger. So he wanted to invent something else based on the study of central nervous systems of biological creatures like ourselves. This is a so-called distributed network where you don't have a hierarchy, you don't have a center, you don't have a headquarter. You have a lot of different parties that can communicate each with each other. And if you take out a lot of them with a nuclear weapon, you can still communicate through the networks. And this developed into what is known as the internet, which is based on this distributed design architecture, and therefore very robust and very easy to scale up from a few computers to a few billion computers like today. Now this is in a sense the icon of the future of our societies, that we will not have headquarters and we will not rely on headquarters. We will have a decentralized systems where the depots, the headquarters, and all this stuff will be taken over by another kind of organizing, the peer-to-peer organizing, the bottom-up organizing, like at the bottom meeting instead of at the summit meeting, where the flow and the links between people are the essential productive force of all this, instead of the headquarters, the command centers in Bella Center, who we slowly realize only react to the things that we demand that they react to. The headquarters do not produce stuff themselves. What produce stuff itself is all the links, all the flows of matter, of energy, of social relations going through people at the non-hierarchical level, at the bottom level of society, rather than at the top level of society. So I would argue, and I cannot do this in detail, that we are going back in a sense to a very new and a very old world at the same time. New because it will be based on high technology, new technologies that we are to develop. Old because it's an old way of living. The old economy of gift giving and sharing of resources, the old way of eating based more on wild wild animals and plants and more on raw stuff than on the highly agriculturalized versions we use these days. The old kind of energy, the renewable energy, but in a new way because we are more people and we need to do it in a new way. The old social order of bottom-up and peer-to-peer self-organization rather than headquarters, and the very old nomadic way of living in our habitation. We are moving from civilization 1, which is 10,000 years ago and started with agriculture, and we are moving into this civilization 2.0 that I claim started a few years ago, which is based on the links between people and the links between ecological processes rather than the centralized brain and headquarter of humans. So we are entering in a sense the link age, where the link is the essence. And daylight will be the metaphor and the driving force of this. Daylight, of course, is gentle and it comes everywhere. It's not centralized like a nuclear power plant or coal power plant. It's distributed, it's soft, and it's flowing all the time. and it belongs to no one. It's for everyone. So also the strategy for doing stuff is not like they did out of this tent, or at least out of Christiania yesterday evening, going out and burning barricades in the street. It will be to act softly, to act gently, to act in a flow like sunlight does, to be non-violent, to be peaceful, to be driven by love rather than by hate. And this will then be... Thank you very much. So this will be a civilization of dawn. We've already had the dawn of civilization 10,000 years ago. Many books have been written about this. Now, what is coming is a civilization of dawn, of the new light coming after darkness, this soft and gentle and ubiquitous light from the planet. So, if we want to be natives, it's basically all about sharing our shit, wanting to do so, to live in the daylight and be humble and be happy with this weird kind of life where you understand that everything you eat is the waste product of someone else. At first you don't like the idea, and then when you start thinking about it, wow, I'm part of this huge show driven by the sun. Wow, I'm one of the many, many children of the sun. Isn't that fantastic? Thank you very much for being here.